Hello and welcome back to Archetype Builds. Today we're going to be talking about the Sorcerer, ranking each of the subclasses according to how well they fit the 7 roles of the party. That being the Beatdown, the Frontline, the Negotiator, the Utility, the Infiltrator, the Investigator, and the Support. So today, of course, we are going to be starting with the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, alphabetically first up in our list. Now this Sorcerer has abilities related to telekinesis and psychic damage. So what you're going to get at first level is telepathic speech, which allows you to form a telepathic connection between your mind and the mind of another. As a bonus action, you choose one creature you can see within 30 feet. You can speak telepathically within each other up to a number of miles equal to your charisma modifier. So probably you are good within any, given city. And it lasts for a number of minutes equal to your sorcerer level. So it's not going to be very many minutes to start. This is highly useful for very targeted infiltrations or potentially during combat, or for specific social interactions where you don't want the other person to hear you, kind of one conversation's worth. In addition to this, you are getting your psionic spells. These are going to include at first level Arms of Hadar, Dissonant Whispers, Mind Sliver, and then as you go up, you'll get more and more, psychic-related spells. So right away, what we can see is that these lend themselves more towards the negotiation and towards infiltration, right? Telepathy is kind of like generally skewed in that direction, but your spells here are all damage spells, right? And specifically psychic damage usually. They're good damage spells, and the Sorcerer, of course, has a certain level of adaptability for doing damage, so I would say this maintains that level of damage-dealing prowess, but really, no one is going to make you the Negotiator or the Infiltrator on the basis of your telepathic speech, right? I guess it's utility a little bit. At 6th level, you're getting a very interesting feature, Psionic Sorcery, which essentially says, if you cast any first level or higher spell from your Psionic Spells feature, so it's got to be from your Psionic Spells, but remember you can swap spells out using that list. You can cast it by expending a spell slot as normal or by spending a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level. This is a better trade-off than you would get by kind of like crunching your sorcery points into spell levels. So rather than doing that, it's better to just cast with sorcery points if that's what you were going to do. And when you do so, you get an automatic subtle spell on the effect. Essentially, this is like your telepathy is activating, and as a result, like you don't even have to move, you don't have to say anything as your mind creates these spell effects. This makes you pretty good at casting spells in social situations, right? Which combined with some of the other spells on the list that you've gotten by now, especially like Detect Thoughts, and potentially something like a Suggestion or a Charm Person, you're really getting into some decent negotiator ability here. This is where you aren't in open combat with a person, but you do want to be able to cast spells to influence how things are going, right? So I think that's pretty useful. And of course, let's go ahead and count that under utility as well. You're also going to get Psychic Defenses, which is going to give you resistance to psychic damage and advantage on saving throws against being charmed and frightened. Of course, advantage on those saving throws is going to come up pretty often, and this is going to help you be more consistent in terms of like damage dealing in combat probably. Resistance to psychic damage is a little bit of a niche feature, and obviously you're not frontlining just because you can resist psychic damage. Although, fun multi-class with Bear Totem Barbarian, then you get them all, right? Then at 14th level you get Revelation in Flesh, which is going to let you mutate a part of your body. You're going to choose from one of these effects. Here you can see any invisible creature, so kind of a true sight effect. You gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed. You gain a swimming speed equal to twice your walking speed and breathe underwater. Or your body, along with any equipment you're wearing, becomes slimy and pliable, and you can move through any space as narrow as 1 inch without squeezing. So, golly gosh gee, you choose one of these effects. Obviously flying is amazing. Flying is very good. You want flying. Seeing any invisible creature within 60 feet is really, really good. It's fantastic. And then you can stack up additional effects if you spend sorcery points. So you can fly around seeing invisible creatures, or you can slip through spaces while having a swim speed or something like that if you need to navigate the sewers or something. I think this is a very, very creative set of utility features, allowing for all kinds of new navigation and movement, infiltration, the ability to have additional senses. So I do think it gets points in all of those categories for this feature. It is 14th level, which is really high up and seems weirdly incompatible with the previous level's features. And we're not even going to bother with the 18th level feature, right, which is, of course, a big old damage thing. I'll throw it up on the screen, but that's not really going to affect our rankings in any way. But a very, very interesting subclass with a wide spread of abilities. Now, of course, we've got to talk about the Clockwork Soul, which is from the same book as the Aberrant Mind, and they also are going to get that list of extra sorcerer spells. They're clockwork magic, right, which at first level includes alarm and protection from evil and good, and you gain these additional spells as you increase in level. Also, right at that first level, you're going to have Restore Balance, which is going to allow you to, when a d20 or test is rolled, with either advantage or disadvantage, you can use your reaction to cancel out the advantage or disadvantage, essentially defaulting to a straight number. Now, there's lots of times when this is going to come up. Advantage is very, very common in D&D. Disadvantage is common enough as well, and it's going to feel great when your DM calls for disadvantage because of some ridiculous circumstance and you're able to cancel that out and help your buddy. So this is kind of neat support, I would say. Even preventing, enemies from attacking with advantage is kind of a support ability. So, neat. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, which is, of course, 2 at this level. You're going to get up to 3 and then 4. It's still not a ton of uses of an ability that could come up in a variety of circumstances. Bastion of Law at 6th level is going to allow you to create a ward around a target. So it says yourself or another creature within 30 feet of you, you spend 1 to 5 sorcery points to create the ward, and those 1 to 5 sorcery points become d8s that can be expended and rolled to reduce damage taken. So you essentially, if you spend 5 sorcery points, you're going to get 5 d8s, and you can roll those d8s to kind of reduce the amount of damage you're taken. So this translates sorcery points to kind of health or protection in a pretty good trade-off. So this is a pretty great use of your sorcery points, is to cast this ward. Obviously, it's going to suck up a lot of those sorcery points pretty often. But if you use this on your tank, for example, or your frontlining character, that's going to definitely come into play. And on average, you're going to be able to save them about 4 or 5 health points per sorcery point, which I think is a pretty good trade-off. And then you get your Avatar Mode superpower at level 14, Trance of Order. Use a bonus action to enter the trance. You're in this state for 1 minute, and during that, attack rolls against you can't have advantage, which is pretty cool. And then all of your ability rolls, attack rolls, saving throws, treat a 9 or lower as a 10 on the d20. So you have this floor. The other thing that's really great about that is by this point at 14th level, you've probably maxed your charisma. You're working with a +5 proficiency bonus. So you're really getting a 20 as your minimum attack roll at this level, which is really, really good. It's going to beat almost all armor classes. You should be able to figure out in combat if your enemy has a 20 or less on their armor class, and then just Avatar Mode and blast with, I guess, Scorching Ray to continuously deal that damage, which would be great. You can also use 5 sorcery points to enter this mode again, which is really good because at 14th level you're probably drenched in sorcery points, right? You've got plenty of them to spare. So really, really good feature. Makes you pretty strong in terms of damage to kind of add on to the support that's come in there. It is a 14th level feature, of course, so we can't weight it too highly. The Divine Soul Sorcerer. So you're going to choose an affinity at first level, which is wild, and then get an extra spell based on that affinity. I guess you could be descended from all kinds of gods, right? And then you're also at first level going to get Favored by the Gods, which is going to allow you to roll 2d4 and add that to a saving throw I think it's only if you do. You can't do this for teammates, but you're going to be slightly better at saving throws every once in a while. And then at 6th level, you're going to gain access to Empowered Healing, which means that you can spend a sorcery point to reroll damage or reroll healing die on a heal spell. So if someone restores hit points, you break out that Cure Wounds at 3rd level or 4th level, and you roll all 1s on the dice. You can use 1 sorcery point to reroll any number of those dice, probably increasing that by a bunch. This is going to make you a much more consistent healer, and with access to the Cleric spell list, you've got a ton of amazing support options, and the ability to make those options much more consistent with this Empowered Healing. So I do think this is a phenomenal support sorcerer. You've got all the toolkits that you need to do that. And then Otherworldly Wings is just going to give you a flying speed. You've got wings, you can have them unfurl, and you can fly around, and you can refurl them as a bonus action. Super useful utility movement here, which is cool. The Draconic. The closest sorcerer subclass to a tank. At level 1 for your Draconic, you're going to choose the color of your Draconic ancestry, and then you get benefits associated with that color. So you can either be descended from an evil dragon or a good dragon, but you're going to essentially choose whether your thing is acid, lightning, fire, cold, or poison damage. And then you're going to get Draconic Resilience, which gives you an additional hit point per level, and make your AC when you aren't wearing armor equal to 13 plus your dexterity modifier, which is equivalent to some armor. So you act mediumly armored and get the equivalent of an additional 2 in your constitution, right, for the purposes of HP. That's kind of a tiny benefit. For one thing, multiclassing isn't that hard, and 1 level of multiclassing would get you potentially the same medium armor with a higher hit die. So starting 1 level fighter and then going sorcerer is probably better than taking the Draconic subclass. So that's not great. 1 hit point per level does not add up very quickly. You are not going to notice those hit points most of the time. So far this is not a super good subclass for anything, including survivability, which is obviously what it's trying to help you do. Plus, doesn't mage armor just give you the same armor class? It's not good. It's not very good. At 6th level, you'll get your Elemental Affinity, which I think is the closest thing we get to a saving grace for this class. It says that when you cast a spell that deals the damage of the type associated with your Draconic ancestry, you can add your Charisma modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. So you can essentially increase your damage by your Charisma modifier, which is good, right? Warlocks take Agonizing Blast for a reason. That's solid. If you constrain yourself to the type of damage that you've chosen for your ancestry. So obviously, if you pick something like fire or cold, maybe even lightning, you'll have plenty of spells that you can use that do stuff like that. And you'll add your Charisma modifier to 1 roll, so essentially to 1 target. And that's very good. And so this does get a decent damage boost, and then you can spend a sorcery point to gain resistance to that damage type as well. So I don't know why it costs sorcery points, and it's not just automatic, but sure. You could be a fire guy who's resistant to fire. That seems A-okay to me. And then, of course, in the Grand Tradition, I didn't realize how many of these there would be. But you can get flying at 14th level with your dragon wings. They sprout, and you can gain a flying speed equal to your current speed. They last until you dismiss them as a bonus action, so you're in good shape with the wings. So I will touch briefly on the Lunar Sorcerer. This is from one of the other setting books, the Dragonlance setting, which is a little bit weird. Lunar Embodiment is going to give you some spells based on the moon that is currently in play. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can choose what lunar phase manifests, so you're essentially choosing which of these class spell lists you are getting your spells from. And then you're also going to get, at 1st level, Moonfire, which says you can call down the radiant light of the moon on command. You learn the Sacred Flame spell. It doesn't count against the number of sorcerer cantrips that you know. And when you cast the spell, you can target 2 creatures within range. They're within 5 feet of each other, which is good. That makes that cantrip twice as good on the occasions when there are other people around. So, love it. That's good. It's still a cantrip, so you know, no one's that impressed. But yeah, I mean, it's good spell. Your 6th level feature, Lunar Boons, gives you 2 spell schools for each of the phases of the moon. And those spell schools benefit more from your meta magic. So they actually cost 1 sorcery point less to do the same meta magic stuff. And it says minimum here of 0. So that's really nice. You're going to get a discount on that if you're casting in a particular area. I imagine your build is probably going to center around one of these phases of the moon, and you're going to kind of keep it there. Whether that's kind of a necromancy kind of sorcerer, or you're doing a lot of like illusion or something like that, then you're going to be that kind of a sorcerer and going to specialize in that and take a lot of spells related to that and get the meta magics discounted. So I do think that these benefits align well with each other and add up, but also make for kind of a customizable subclass. So at 6th level, you're also going to get Waxing and Waning, which allows you to choose the phase of lunar magic as a bonus action. So you can change to a different phase. I struggle to see, maybe there is some next level build, maybe I'll do one at some point, some next level build where you want to change up your strategy. You have like a prep phase that involves like the half moon phase, and then you go into your next phase, which is the full moon. I think you're probably going to end up sticking with one and specializing, so I don't think that this Waxing and Waning is like something that's going to come up a lot. But it's there. And then at 14th level, you're going to get Lunar Empowerment, which is going to essentially, you gain the following benefit associated with the phase while you're in that phase. For full moon, you can use a bonus action to shed light, and then in addition, creatures of your choice have advantage on intelligence, investigation, and wisdom perception checks while within the bright light you shed. So you can help find clues and stuff, which is neat. And then New Moon, you have advantage on stealth checks. While you're entirely in darkness, attack rolls have disadvantage against you, I guess, if someone had like dark vision. So this is your good infiltration phase, I guess. And then Crescent Moon, you've got resistance to necrotic and radiant damage, which I presume you would only use if you were facing enemies that did a lot of necrotic or radiant damage. But in such fights, resistance is really good. So it's good that you don't have to take that as your only feature. You can use other features, but you've got it available for you in those niche circumstances. I think probably the New Moon there is the best one to like have up at any given time. Just because stealth checks aren't particularly uncommon, and if your group agrees to work with each other at night, attacks against you having disadvantage all the time is very good in almost all combats, right? So these are the more general benefits. Overall, interesting subclass. I do think there's a lot of choice and customizability in there, but when you add everything together, I think there's no combination of options that lends itself to anything more than just like decent. Alright, so listen, Runechild. I'm not doing Runechild in this video because this is the definitive class ranking guide. And my pitch was, now that they're doing 1D&D, they're not going to come out with any more subclasses for the original 5th edition. So we can do a safe comparative roundup of all of those subclasses. And then they released the Tal'Dorei setting, and they've got all these subclasses in there, including the Runechild Sorcerer. And I'm gonna do them all in one video at the end. I'm gonna do them later. We're gonna see how they stack up. Can't believe that they would undermine this series just to get at me, just specifically to target me and my work here. Unbelievable. We're talking about the Shadow Sorcerer. So, Eyes in the Dark at 1st level. You gain dark vision within a range of 120 feet, and you learn the Darkness spell. It doesn't count against your number of sorcerer spells known. When you cast it by spending 2 sorcery points, or by expending a spell slot, you can see through the darkness created by the spell. This is a big deal because a lot of classes that cast darkness might not be able to see in darkness since it is magical darkness and not subject to dark vision. It's very hard to see in magical darkness, and this class is one of the very few that can do that. You get a bunch of benefits for doing this, which include having advantage because you can see people in the magical darkness, but they can't see you, and them having disadvantage against you. That is going to lean combats in a big way. You're also at this level going to get Strength of the Grave, which is a kind of like one-time use bounce back from death effect, which is pretty cool. Weirdly though, if you're in a magical darkness with your target, you're probably pretty close, and this Strength of the Grave is like designed for if you get knocked down. So like, is this a melee sorcerer or something? Weird construction of the class, but these features are powerful, and they are most importantly min-maxable, which means that you can make builds that play specifically to this subclass. At level 6, you're going to pick up the Hound of Ill Omen. This is a creature that is going to chase a target like It Follows, and the Hound has a number of temporary hit points equal to half your sorcerer level, move through other creatures and objects, and at the start of its turn, it knows the target's location, so it's always going to be able to follow that target. While the Hound is within 5 feet of the target has disadvantage on saving throws against any spell you cast. So, it also says that the Hound can make opportunity attacks. It uses the direwolf stats, which are not like crazy good stats. You're probably not summoning this to be your battle companion. You're probably summoning it for that disadvantage on saving throws. Plan A, put Magical Darkness down and attack your opponent with advantage. Plan B, sick your Hound of Ill Omen on them, and then use spells that require saving throws, giving them disadvantage and being able to deal that damage more frequently, kind of knocking your target down. Now, their counterplay is to attack the Hound, which doesn't have that many hit points, but of course, if the Hound absorbs a bunch of attacks, that's pretty good too. So your opponent is in some some dire straits if you sick the Hound on them. Luckily for them, you can only do this with 3 sorcery points. So that is a chunk of change that you're laying down, especially at 6th level. That's half your sorcery points. So you're probably not doing this more than once per combat. As you get into later levels, maybe you will be able to do so. And then Shadow Walk, one of the best infiltration features in the game that I've ever seen. You gain the ability to step from one shadow to another when you're in dim light or darkness. Dim light is incredibly easy to come across. As a bonus action, you can teleport up to 120 feet into another space that is in dim light or darkness. And of course, there is no usage cap on this, which is critical. So you can be popping around in the shadows as much as you want all day long. You are a Shadow Walker, which is so cool. Fantastic infiltration potential, fantastic mobility, really good feature. 14th level, but you know, really good feature. What is it with the 14th level mobility features for sorcerers? Why are we doing that? Clockwork got like an avatar state at 14th level, and everyone else has gotten mobility. Very weird. Alright, your Storm Sorcery. So, at 1st level, you're getting Tempestuous Magic. So you can use a bonus action on your turn to cause whirling gusts of air to surround you, giving you a 10-foot fly speed without provoking opportunity attacks whenever you cast a 1st level spell. Also, you're going to get Wild Speaker, which gives you Primordial, that you read, write, and speak. At 6th level, you're going to grab Heart of the Storm, which says that you gain resistance to lightning and thunder damage, and in addition, whenever you start casting a spell of 1st level that deals lightning or thunder damage, magic erupts from you. This eruption causes creatures of your choice that you can see within 10 feet of you to take lightning or thunder damage equal to half your sorcerer level. So, you get a little AoE that pulses out from you whenever you cast a lightning or thunder spell. Really cool. Great for if you're surrounded. Of course, if you're surrounded, that's bad for you. But not only can you deal a little damage to them, but you can fly yourself out of their way, which is cool. It's very nice. And then you also are going to get at 6th level Storm Guide. So you get the ability to subtly control the weather around you. If it's raining, you can use an action to stop the rain in a 20-foot radius sphere centered on you. And then if it's windy, you can use a bonus action to direct the wind and a 100-foot radius centered on you. I actually have seen this used in a pirate campaign as like the person who was able to like steer the ship with wind using their 6th level ability. And this is just kind of like a passive, there's no limit on the number of times you can do this. They are just a storm sorcerer, which is super cool. Altogether, we are getting here a little bit of like individual mobility, a little bit of like DPS boost when you cast lightning spells, and then this kind of like utility weather feature. So it's very spread out right now in terms of what role this class plays. At 14th level, you get Storm's Fury, which as a reaction when you take damage, or get hit by a melee attack, you can deal lightning damage to the attacker equal to your Sorcerer level, which again, when you get this, is 14. Attacker makes a strength saving throw, and on a failed save, they are pushed 20 feet away from you. So you get a nice little damage and push away effect. You can see that this Sorcerer is all about dealing with people in the melee, right? If people group up around you, cast some lightning, it deals damage to them, you get out of the way. If one of those people hits you, you can deal damage to them, push them away. You are almost designed to counter the counter to a sorcerer, right? Which is people coming into the melee and messing your stuff up. In my experience, this means that you are only at your best when you are at your worst, right? If people are grouping up and attacking you, you're not going to last long. You do get to use all your fun abilities, but you are ideally trying to avoid that circumstance in the first place. So I don't know quite how good this subclass is, other than to say it is not the worst frontliner in the world. You would do some decent damage and have some decent mobility if you were in the melee. Oh, Wild Magic Sorcerer. All right, this one's a classic, right? With this one, we all know the Wild Magic Sorcerer. We all learned this in grade school. So let's talk about the Wild Magic Sorcerer. I'm not going to start with the Surge because the Surge is complicated, but I am going to start with Tides of Chaos, which says you can manipulate the forces of chance and chaos to gain advantage on one attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Once you do so, you must finish a long rest before you can use this feature again, but anytime before you regain the use of this feature, DM can have you roll on the Wild Magic Surge table immediately after you cast a Sorcerer spell, and then you regain a use of this feature. So, the way this works is you use Tides of Chaos, which gives you advantage on something, which loads a bullet into the chamber. The DM decides whenever you cast a spell, whether or not that pulls the trigger, and fires a Wild Magic Surge, and then you get Tides of Chaos back. I stand with the dungeon dudes who say this should always be done. So whenever someone uses Tides of Chaos and then casts a Sorcerer spell afterwards, you should just call for a Wild Magic Surge. What is a Wild Magic Surge, the 5 of you who haven't seen this class are asking? Well, it's all this. It's all this stuff going on the screen right now. There's a big old table. You probably can't even read it. I dare you. Try and read it. It's too small. Big old table of features. It's one of those things where if you read through every one of them, and I've done this, I don't have the index card that I did this on, so I can't show you, but I ranked each of the different things as either negative, neutral, or positive, and weighed the relative odds of them. And overwhelmingly, this is a good thing, right? Like your positive features are going to outweigh, actually neutral outweighs everything else, but like your positive features outweigh your negative potentials. It's just that it's so swingy, right? So you can either, regain all your sorcery points or get resistance to damage types, or you can have a fireball centered on yourself, which explodes and deals damage to you and all of your allies. Like it's very swingy, essentially. And so that's what the Wild Magic Sorcerer is known for, is you are someone who, your class features are going to create these Wild Magic Surges, and then you are going to potentially harm your party, or potentially help your party, and you don't know, and you're just along for the ride. So that's fun. In terms of our rankings, though, the main issue with Wild Magic is that you can't control any of this. So you can't plan on being an Investigator, an Infiltrator, or a Frontline, or a Beatdown, or anything like that. It's all up to the dice. Bend Luck is going to give you the ability to spend 2 sorcery points and roll a d4. Apply that number rolled as a bonus or penalty to an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw that you can see. It's a very, very versatile feature. 2 sorcery points is too much, so you're only going to use this in the most extreme cases. Lastly, Controlled Chaos is going to give you advantage on your Wild Magic Surge rolls. So when you roll that D100, you roll it twice and choose which effect you want to have, which I think is so critical to this class and seriously improves your odds of doing something helpful. However, at the end of the day, really can't count on this class to do any of the individual rolls above and beyond what a sorcerer is ordinarily capable of. So my camera ran out of battery, but that is the Sorcerer. Those are all of subclasses, all the rankings. I was surprised when I went back through and edited everything just how little those Sorcerer subclasses shift the baseline. A lot of them kind of throw features into these areas where there were already good options in the spells available to sorcerers. And a lot of them like spread their features out across a lot of different areas. So, and that's the way to not get any movement in the rankings, you know, when you try to do it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you are interested in the conclusion of the series, which is rapidly approaching. We just have our W's, the Warlock and the Wizard, left, and then we'll do some series recap videos. Thanks, guys.